What a turnout. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And let me introduce my wife, Jane. I am very grateful that you came out tonight to have a discussion about some of the important issues facing America. And what we are going to do tonight is something pretty radical. It doesn't happen very much in our country today. We're going to practice democracy. How's that? The truth is that politics is not very complicated. Unfortunately, I think the media often distorts what politics is about and has converted politics into a baseball game or a soap opera so that most of the articles and most of the TV is about process. What's the latest poll? How much money is somebody raising? What dumb thing happened yesterday? Rather, and I can assure you if I slipped up and out here, that would be the front page story. Sad but true. Meanwhile, the most important issues we face as a people are not being discussed. And in a democracy, we respect people with different points of view. That's good. But it is terribly important that we put the major issues and problems facing our country out on the table, and we figure out how to resolve. And the other problem that we have is very often media wants to see conflict, and they want to see one candidate beating up on another candidate. I cannot tell you how often. Essentially, I've been asked to beat up on Hillary Clinton, and I don't do that. Because I have differences of opinions with Secretary Clinton, and I will talk about them. But I think the American people are sick and tired of politicians saying, I'm great, everybody else is better. I have never run. I've been involved in politics for a while. I was mayor of the city of Burlington, Vermont for 4 terms. I was in Congress for 8 terms, and I won 2 elections to the Senate. I have never run a negative ad in my life. I think one of the reasons that our campaign is generating so much excitement and the momentum has been so strong is in fact we are dealing with the issues that are in the hearts and souls of the American people. And I should tell you that we have not only had the largest turnouts of any campaigns here in Iowa and in New Hampshire. I just came back from the West Coast. We had 15,000 people out in Seattle, 28,000 people in Portland, Oregon. 27,000 people in Los Angeles. Well, what this campaign is about is not just large turnouts. Our campaign is, in fact, a people's campaign. You are looking at one of the very few presidential candidates who does not have a super PAC. I don't want money from corporations. I don't support their agenda. I don't want money from billionaires. We're going to win this campaign with the support of ordinary Americans. The really quite amazing. Super PACs, as you know, are run by millionaires and billionaires, and people can contribute as much money as they want into it. There are fundraising evenings where folks put $1 million apiece or $500,000 apiece into a campaign. Our campaign does it a little bit differently. We have raised more individual contributions, 350,000 more individual contributions than any other candidate. You know what our average contribution is? It's $31.20. How's that? We're doing it a little bit different than Mr. Trump and the other candidates. We're going to win this election because we're bringing people together. Because middle class, working families, low-income people. You know what we're going to do in this campaign? We are actually going to talk about poverty in America. That's not a word you hear much on Capitol Hill, but when we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, when 45 million of our brothers and sisters are living in poverty, this campaign will talk about it. This campaign is going to bring together whites and blacks and Hispanics, native-born Americans, immigrants, men, women, gay and straight. We are going to bring our people. And we understand that when our people come together, there is nothing that can stop us. Charlie, Gail, and Joe for making just that point. Just that point. Now, our campaign has kind of taken the political establishment a little bit by surprise. When we started 3.5 months ago, they said, well, really, is there an appetite in America to stand up to the billionaire class? And guess what? Turns out that there is. And when people ask me why there is so much excitement and so much enthusiasm in this campaign, my answer is that the American people are sick and tired of establishment politics, establishment economics, and establishment media. They want real change. People of our country fully understand that corporate greed is destroying our economy. They understand that almost all of the new income and wealth being generated is going to the top 1%. They understand that politics in America now is dominated by big money interests who spend unlimited sums of money to elect candidates who will make the rich richer and everybody else poorer. about everything except the most important issues facing the American people. Our campaign is different than other campaigns, not only in terms of how we raise money, what our vision is. It is the way we are running the campaign. And what this campaign understands, and let me be very clear about this and tell you what no other candidate for president will tell you. I am here to ask for your support for president, but that's not enough. If we are serious about transforming America, it goes beyond electing a president. Because the truth is, and nobody else running for president will tell you this, the big money interests, the big campaign donors, Wall Street, corporate America, the Koch brothers, all of these guys are so powerful that no president, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else, can bring about the changes we need unless there is a grassroots political movement from coast to coast. It's not just about Bernie. It is about all of us. The only way we transform this country, the only way we make government work for the middle class and not the billionaires, is when millions of people stand up and give these guys an offer they can't refuse. Of 2015. You know, I am here, delighted to be here at a Catholic college and university, because Pope Francis is raising these issues all over the world. And if anybody thinks that what I am saying is radical, read what the Pope is saying. What I believe is we cannot be a nation, a culture, a world in which we worship money. That cannot be what life is about. We cannot be a culture which says, I only have 5 billion, I need more and more, and I do not care that veterans are sleeping out on the street. That children are. And it's not the America that we must become. We must become an America where we know that we become more human when we care about our brothers and sisters who are hurting. And it's mutual. Love you too. Political revolution is not just many of the issues that I'm talking about, it is changing our culture. That's pretty radical stuff. It is understanding that we grow and we become better human beings when people down the street become better and stronger as well. We're all in this together. talk about some of the major issues facing our country. One of the issues that concerns me most is the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in our country today. The United States of America today is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But most people in America don't know that because they're too busy working 2 or 3 jobs or trying to put food on the table for their kids or figuring out how they're going to put gas in the car in order to get to work. And the reason that people don't know that we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world is that almost all of the wealth and income is going to the top 1%. And together we're going to change that. The United States today has more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. You know, you think about the United Kingdom and the Queens and the Dukes and all this stuff. We have more inequality than they do. And in fact, it is worse in America today than at any time since 1928. In America today, the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90% of our people. Today in America, you got one family, Walton family, owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. I'm not talking about some small third world country. I'm talking about America. One family owns more wealth than the bottom 40%. In America, in the last 2 years, the wealthiest 14 people in this country, 14 people, have seen their wealth increase by $156 billion. 14 people. That is more wealth than is owned by the bottom 130 million Americans. Today, in our country, 56% of all new income is going to the top 1%. In other words, you are living in an economy which is rigged. The rich get richer, everybody else gets poorer, and we have got to change that. This campaign is sending a message to the billionaire class. And that message is, you cannot have it all. You cannot get huge tax breaks when children in America go hungry. You cannot continue shutting down plants and factories in Iowa and in Vermont and all across this country, throw millions of people out of work, and then move to low-wage countries. You can't continue. You cannot hide your billions in profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens, such that hugely profitable, multi-billion-dollar corporations end up in a given year paying zero in taxes. That is going to end. But we need to address not only the horrendous level of income and wealth inequality, we need to understand that for the last 40 years, the middle class of this country has been disappearing. And what that means is that despite a revolution in technology, where almost every worker in America is more productive than he or she was years ago, we're producing more. And yet the reality is that millions of Americans are working longer hours for lower wages. The reality is that in my state of Vermont and here in Iowa, people are not just working one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs to cobble together some income and some health care. We need an economy that works for working people and not just billionaires. And that's what we're doing about. When we talk about the economy, we also have to tell the truth about unemployment. Every month, the federal government comes out with a statistic on official unemployment. Last report was 5.3%. People say, well, that's not too bad, it's okay. Some states are even lower, my state is lower. But that is not true and real unemployment, because there's another government statistic that tells you that if you add unemployed workers to those people who have given up looking for work, to those millions who are working part-time, that needs to be discussed. Media doesn't talk about it. Very few people talk about it, but it is an American tragedy. I asked the Economic Policy Institute, a very good economics think tank in DC, asked them research for me and tell me what real youth unemployment is in this country. For kids who have graduated high school between the ages of 17 and 20. And this is what they reported back to me. For those kids who are whites, real unemployment, no jobs, giving up working part-time when they want to work full-time. Real unemployment for white kids, 33%. Real unemployment for Hispanic kids, 36%. Real unemployment for African American kids, 51%. In other words, we are turning our backs on an entire generation of kids who want to stand up on their own 2 feet, want to start a career, want to make some money, want to become independent, and they don't have that opportunity. That has got to change. Let me suggest something else to you. One of the great tragedies in this country is that in our great nation, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. Did you all know that? We are a much smaller country than China. China has 3 or 4 times our population. China is a communist, authoritarian country. We have more people in jail than China does. And if you think that this outrageously high rate of youth unemployment, where 5.5 million kids are hanging out on street corners in Dubuque and Burlington, Vermont, not in school, not at work, getting into trouble. If you think it is an accident that we have more people in jail than any other country, you'd be kidding yourselves. In my view, it makes a lot more sense for us to invest in jobs and education rather than jails and incarceration. Together we must end the shame of America having more people in jail than any other country, and in fact become the nation on earth not with more people in jail, but with the best educated population in the world. When we talk about the economy, and when we ask ourselves, why is it that people are working 2 or 3 jobs. I was in Des Moines a couple of months ago, and I was at the farmer's market and talked to a young man who was working with a church organization, taking food that is not sold at the farmer's market and bringing it to an emergency food shelf. And I asked him, I'm just curious, what percentage of the people who go to the emergency food shelf are working? How many of them are unemployed? And he said, 90% of the people going to the emergency food shelf are working. Now what does that tell you? What it tells you, not just in Des Moines, not just in Burlington, Vermont, where the story is the same, it tells you all over this country. Millions of people are working 30, 40, 50 hours a week. They are not making enough money to feed their families. And the reason for that is that wages for millions of Americans are much too low. Let me be as clear as I can be. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour over the next few years. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. When we talk about wages, there is another issue that we have got to tackle. And men, I hope you will stand with women on this issue. And that is, there is no excuse for women making 78 cents on a dollar compared to men. We have got to fight for pay equity for women workers, and when we do that, we're going to take a big chunk out of poverty. A lot of women out there trying to raise their families, not making fair wages. Pay equity will give them the opportunity to live in dignity with their kids. Now, when we talk about important issues, let us understand that there are a lot of Republicans running around Iowa, running around America, talking about family values. So I want to say a word on family values. Not everybody may agree with me, but let me say what I will say. And that is, I have 4 kids, and I have 7 beautiful grandchildren. Jane and I have been married for 27 years. Somehow we did it. We don't know how, but we did it. And we believe in family values, and we believe in strong families. But when my Republican colleagues talk about family values, let me tell you what they believe. They believe that women should not be able to control their own bodies. I disagree. They believe that women should not be able to purchase the contraceptives that they need. I disagree. They believe that our gay friends and family members, our brothers and sisters, should not be able to enjoy the same benefits as other Americans in terms of getting married. I disagree. Let me tell you about my values, my family values. And here's the first of them. And that is, the United States of America must end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee our people paid family and medical leave. All of you who are parents will know what I'm talking about. Today in Iowa, today in Vermont, and all over this country, women are giving birth, and that is an extraordinary moment in a family's life. And those of you who are parents know what that means. It's also a pretty big day for the baby. But if that woman who's given birth, and if that family has sufficient income, that mom and that dad will be able to stay home, nurture that baby, get to know this new creation, get to love this baby, get to bond with this baby. And that is just an extraordinary human experience. But if that mom and if that family do not have sufficient income, that baby will be separated from the mom, because mom will be forced to go back to work in 4 days, 5 days, 8 days in order to make a living. That is not a family value. Why I support and will fight for 3 months of paid family and medical leave. In this great country, a mother has the right to get to know her baby. That's all. Furthermore, we are the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid sick time for working people. We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee at least a couple of weeks of paid vacation time for our workers. Now, some of you may know this and some of you may not. But as a result of the collapse of the American middle class, our people today are working longer hours than the other people in a major industrialized country. Japanese are very hard workers. We work longer hours than they do. And here's something that we should think long and hard about. If you remember reading your high school, elementary school history textbooks, you'll see pictures of workers in the early 1900s marching down the street demanding a 40-hour work week. Remember those? And what workers 100 years ago were saying, they said, we're not beasts of burden. You know, we don't just want to work and work and work. We want time for our families. We want time for education. Today in America, 85% of men are working longer than 40 hours. 65% of women are working longer than 40 hours. And there are many jobs being offered today that have zero paid vacation time. That's wrong. Every worker in America should have at least some vacation. I think all of you know that the infrastructure of the United States of America, which once was the envy of the entire world, people looked at our roads, our bridges, our rail system, our water systems, our wastewater plants, and they said, we got to be like America. They've got it right. But today, that is no longer the case. We are behind many other countries in terms of our infrastructure. In my view, we have got to invest heavily to rebuild our crumbling roads and bridges and rail. And when we do that, we can create 13 million decent paying jobs. Of our people should not be unemployed. 30–40% of our young people should not be unemployed. Let's put many of them back to work, rebuilding our infrastructure, making America safer, more efficient, and more productive. And when we talk about jobs, our goal is not just to create millions of decent paying jobs. That we've got to do. But the other thing we have to figure out is how we stop losing jobs as a result of our disastrous trade policies. I know that trade is not a sexy issue. In fact, it's hardly ever discussed in media. That's just a simple fact. But it is an enormously important issue. You are looking at a senator and a former congressman who voted against NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent long-term. All of you know that throughout this country we have lost thousands of factories. In fact, we have lost almost 60,000 factories since 2001 and millions of decent paying jobs. Well, not all of that loss is attributable to trade. There are other reasons, but a lot of it is. What corporate America had in mind when they pushed through these trade agreements, and that is exactly what happened. These trade agreements were written by the big money interest. Democrats, Republicans came on board. What corporate America had in mind was the following. They were saying, why should I pay, if I'm a CEO of a large corporation, a worker here in Iowa, 20, 25 bucks an hour, provide health care, and have to deal with the union, and have to protect environment? Why would I want to do that when I can shut down in Iowa, shut down in Vermont, move to a low-wage country, pay workers pennies an hour, and bring our products back into this country? Now, some of the young people here tonight may not know there was once a time in American history where you could actually go to a department store and buy products made in the USA. It's time we did that again. It is time that we told corporate America that if they want us to buy their products, and they do, it's time for them to start manufacturing those products here in America. When we hear words like greed, fraud, dishonesty, arrogance, these are just some of the adjectives we use to describe Wall Street. The simple truth is that the recklessness and illegal behavior of Wall Street drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. That's the truth. We need need a banking system that is part of the productive economy, making loans at affordable rates to small and medium-sized businesses so we can create decent-paying jobs. We cannot continue to have a financial system which is an island unto itself, whose only goal, legal or illegal, is to make as much money for themselves as they can. 7 years ago, the taxpayers of this country bailed out Wall Street because the major banks were, quote, too big to fail. Yet today, 3 out of the 4 largest financial institutions are 80% bigger than they were before we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. Incredibly, the largest 6 banks in this country issue more than 2/3 of the credit cards, over 35% of all mortgages. They control 95% of all derivatives and hold more than 40% of all bank deposits. In my view, if a financial institution is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. We gotta break it off. You know, sometimes people ask me, and they say, well, Bernie, you got a lot of issues out there. What is the most important issue? And it's very hard, because all of the issues we're talking about are enormously important. But there is one issue that is unique, because it impacts every other issue. And let me be as blunt as I can be when I tell you what you already know. And that is that as a result of the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, the American political system, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but it's important that you know the truth. As a result of Citizens United, the American political system has been totally corrupted, and American democracy is being undermined, and that is the simple truth. What the United States Supreme Court said about 5 years ago in a 5-4 decision, what they said to the wealthiest people in this country, they said, okay guys, you already own much of the American economy. We're now going to give you the opportunity to own the United States government, and that is precisely what they are trying to do right now. Now, when you have one family, the Coca-Colas, a family that is worth $85 billion, a family that wants not to cut Social Security, not to cut Medicare, not to cut Medicaid, but to end all of those programs, to end the Environmental Protection Agency. When you have one family prepared to spend $900 million in this campaign cycle, that is more money than the Democratic Party will spend, more money than the Republican Party will spend. When you have one family spending more money than either of the 2 major political parties, my friends, you are not living in a democracy, you are living in an oligarchy, and we have got to change that. Chairman of the Senate Veterans Committee, and I have talked to many veterans from World War II to Korea to Vietnam Iraq, Afghanistan, Gulf War. Men and women who have put their lives on the line to defend this country and to defend our democracy. What we have got to say loudly and clearly is that the United States government is not for sale. We are going to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court decision. And not only must we overturn Citizens United, we've got to go beyond that. I am a fervent and passionate believer in democracy. I love democracy, I really do. I love the idea. Democracy is a pretty radical idea, just a couple hundred years old. It used to be that you had kings and queens and czars and all these people. They determined when countries went to war. They determined who paid taxes. And the world evolved. People thought, they said, you know what? We want a say in how we live. That's what democracy is essentially about. Not only do we have to overturn Citizens United, we have to go further. We need to move toward public funding of elections. I want our country to be the most vibrant democracy in the world. I want us to have one of the highest voter turnouts, not one of the lowest voter turnouts. Last November, 63% of the American people did not vote. 80% of young people did not vote. A lot of reasons for that. But this is what I want to see in our country. This is the fight we've got to wage. I want to see anybody, whether they're conservative, moderate, progressive, whatever they are, people who want to serve publicly, people who have ideas that they want to get out. I want to see people be able to run for office without begging money from the wealthy and the powerful. Whether it's city council, whether it's state legislature, whether it's president, I want you to know that you don't have to be rich, you don't have to beg from billionaires in order to serve your country in public service. A couple of weeks ago, I was at an event with Martin Luther King III, and the people from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a major civil rights group. And what we were there to talk about was to honor the men and women who fought for the Voting Rights Act, which we celebrated 50 years. Now, the young people may not know the significance of the Voting Rights Act, but forever before that act, we had African Americans in the South, and if you saw the movie Selma, you saw it demonstrated, people who could not vote, could not participate in the political process for one reason, and that was the color of their skin. And finally, because of the work of millions of people, because people marched in Selma and got beaten up and almost killed. Finally, the President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson, United States Congress said, enough is enough. We are going to pass a Voting Rights Act, a major step forward for American democracy. But 2 years ago, the United States Supreme Court gutted a major provision of that Voting Rights Act. And as a result of that, what you are seeing, not only in the South, what you are seeing in states all across this country with Republican governors and Republican legislatures are major efforts toward voter suppression. And I have to tell you that profoundly disgusts me, and I'll tell you why. I am a politician. That's what I am. I run for office. I've been elected many, many times in my state of Vermont. And sometimes I've lost elections. But it has never, ever occurred to me that in order for me to win an election, I have to figure out a way to deny people who disagree with me the right to vote. If you believe in your ideas, and if you believe that people should support you because you think your ideas are right, stand by your ideas. Don't be a political coward who wins elections by denying other people the right to vote. Republican governors and Republican legislatures are trying to make it harder for people of color, for low-income people, for seniors. You know, you need a driver's license. Well, what happens if you don't have a car? Well, you can go across town and pay $25 for a voter ID card. But what happens if I can't get across town or I don't have the $25? And on it goes. They want to make it harder for people to vote. I just introduced legislation to vote. If we believe in democracy, we want more people to participate, not fewer. All of you are aware that today our country lives in a very competitive global economy. That's no secret to anyone. In a highly competitive global economy, it goes without saying that we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. That's what we need. It is beyond my comprehension that if our goal is to have the best educated workforce, that today in America, hundreds of thousands of bright, able, qualified young people who want to get a college education are unable to do so for one reason: their family lacks the money. That is wrong. It's got to change. Just because he or she comes from a low-income family, or a working-class family, or a middle-class family, that they cannot become a doctor, or a teacher, or an engineer, or a scientist, or a police officer, or whatever. Just because their family lacks income, it's not acceptable to me. And that is... I have introduced legislation and will fight for as president to make every public college and university in America tuition free. And let me tell you why it's so important. For obvious reasons it's important. But it goes beyond kids in high school who will now be able to go to college. This is also what it does, so I want you to stay with me on this. There are kids in Dubuque right now in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. There are kids in Burlington, Vermont in the 6th grade whose mom or dad never went to college. That was my family. My mom and dad never went to college. Those kids do not know any families where people went to college. And those kids, deep down, if not intellectually, at least in their gut, believe that no matter what they do in school, college is a dream too far, that they will never make it to college. How can they go to college? I want every one of those kids to understand, and I want the teachers to understand, that if those kids study hard, if they do their work, if they pay attention, that yes, they will be able to get a college education regardless of the income of their families. And that is why this concept is revolutionary. It will impact kids, not just in high school, but in the first grade and the third grade. And furthermore, when we talk about higher education, we have got to ask ourselves, how does it happen that millions of Americans today, some young, some not so young, are saddled, are being crushed by outrageous student debt? I have talked to doctors whose crime in life was that they wanted to go to medical school and they wanted to practice primary care with low-income patients, exactly the kinds of doctors that we need. I have talked to dentists, and we have a major dental crisis in America in terms of access to affordable dental care. I have talked to these people. They have graduated school, medical school, dental school, $300,000 to $400,000 in debt. I have talked to kids in the state of Vermont graduating college, $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 in debt. People paying 20, 25% of their limited incomes paying off their loans. Now, to my mind, what makes no sense at all is that today, these people are paying interest rates of 6, 8, 10% when you can refinance your home at 2, 3, 4%. Says that they will be able to refinance their debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. And what we also say is that the United States government, which holds most of this debt, should not be profiteering on the backs of working class people. Let's be honest and acknowledge that if we make public colleges and universities tuition-free, if we substantially lower interest rates on student debt, that this in fact is an expensive proposition. It is. It's about $70 billion a year, a lot of money. And people ask me, people say, well, how are you going to pay for it? I'll tell you how our legislation pays for it. We put a tax on Wall Street speculation. Which will bring in substantially more money than the cost of this program. And when I say to Wall Street, the middle class and the working class of this country bailed you out. Now it's your turn to help the working class of this country. When we talk about our responsibilities as parents, as adults, as human beings, I don't know that we have any greater responsibility than making sure that the planet we leave to our children is habitable. The debate is over. The scientific community has spoken in a virtually unanimous voice in telling us that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, it is already causing devastating problems all over the world and in Latin America, look at California and water, look at Pakistan and heat waves, look at drought. All over the world, people are already suffering. And what the scientists have told us very clearly, I'm on both the Energy Committee and the Environmental Committee, I hear from these guys, and what they have said is we have a short window of opportunity. And if we don't boldly transform our energy system, by the end of this century, this planet of ours will be between 5 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. That is an extraordinary occurrence. If that happens, there will be more drought, more flood, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, which will have a huge impact. There will be rising sea levels, flooding seacoast countries all over the world. And what the CIA tells us, there will be more international conflict because people will be fighting for fewer and fewer natural resources. In my view, and the Pope made this brilliantly clear in his recent encyclical, in my view, we have the moral responsibility to lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainability. I want to make a connection here when I talk about climate change. And that is, as perhaps the most progressive member of the United States Congress, I have obviously strong disagreements with Republicans over every issue. But that goes without saying. But here's the point that I want to make. On this issue, what's going on is something different. Because what almost all Republicans are doing, and I think virtually all of the Republican candidates for president are doing, is rejecting science. Yeah. We cannot be a great nation when the political party that controls the U.S. House and U.S. Senate reject science. We can't do that. I don't hear my Republican colleagues rejecting cancer research, Alzheimer's research, diabetes research. They listen to what the scientific community is saying. But this research they reject. And let me kind of make a loop here. Why is it that they do that? And I will tell you why. I will tell you why. Because if Republicans one day stood up and they said, you know what? We've read the literature. We've talked to the scientists. Climate change is real. It's a threat. We have got to deal with it. You know what would happen? The Koch brothers and big energy would stop funding these Republicans. That's the truth. And that is how, that's just one example of what a corrupt campaign finance system does to public policy. So what we have got to say to our Republican colleagues is stop worrying about your campaign funding, worry about your kids and your grandchildren instead. When we talk about a vision for America, a vision as to where we want this country to go, we have got to end the absurdity of being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. I live 100 miles away from the Canadian border. They have health care for all. Virtually every European country, every Scandinavian country has made the decision that health care is a right, not a privilege. We should join them. Now, what's wrong? The Affordable Care Act, which I supported, has made some real progress. But we have got to go further. Today, 35 million Americans still have no health insurance, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. And yet, because of the greed and power of the private insurance companies and the drug companies, we are spending almost twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other major country. In my view, the United States has got to join the rest of the industrialized world through a Medicare for all single payer program. In recent years, in my view, we have made real progress in ending a lot of discrimination in this country. We've become a much less discriminatory society, and as a nation we have got a lot to be proud of in that regard. And by the way, here in Iowa, a virtually all-white state, you were the first to say that we're going to elect people based on their ideas, not the color of their skin. Congratulations, Iowa. But you all know that while we have made progress, we still have a long way to go. It is not acceptable to you, not acceptable to me, that unarmed African Americans are being shot, are being dragged out of their cars. I was a mayor for 8 years and worked very closely with the police department, and the vast majority of police are honest, hard-working people doing an enormously difficult job. Being a cop today is not easy, but we have got to be clear that when a police officer or any public official breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. When we talk about bringing people together, when we talk about bringing black and white and Hispanic, gay and straight, men and women, people born in America, people who are not born in America, what we have got to appreciate is there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. I was just in Phoenix last month, and I was talking to 7 or 8 young Hispanic kids. And tears were rolling out of their eyes as they talked about their fear of being deported or of having their mom or dad being deported. In my view, we have got to provide legal protection now to undocumented people. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need a path towards citizenship. You are looking at a former member of Congress who voted against the war in Iraq. And if you go to YouTube and hear the speech that I gave in opposition to the war, sadly, I say this with no joy, that a lot of what I feared would happen in terms of the destabilization of the region sadly turned out to be true. I am deeply distressed that every day I hear from Republican presidential candidates, members of Congress, who seem to have forgotten the cost of war, what war has done to our people, who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. As I said before, I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee. And I know not just that 6,700 brave men and women fought and died in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I also know many of them came home without legs, without arms, without eyesight, and that 500,000 of them, 500,000, came home with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Thousands and thousands of families have been destroyed. Too many of our veterans have committed suicide. I strongly support the President's effort to make certain that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. That is the right policy for a number of reasons. But the reason I support what the President and Secretary Kerry are trying to do is that we must understand that if we are not successful in achieving that goal in a peaceful way, there will be another war in the Middle East. In my view, what a great country is about is not a country which rattle sabers, that's what I was trying to say. Not a country which is bellicose, not a country which is threatening the world, but a country which understands that war is the last resort, not the first resort. Nobody can, that this agreement with Iran reached with 5 other nations, I can't guarantee you that it will work. Nobody can. But I think at least before people start talking about another war, we have got to give peace a chance. This campaign is about is asking all of you to think big, not small. I want you to have a mindset which has a vision of what America can become. And in my opinion, my strong view is that when we stand together and we do not allow people to divide us up by race, by gender, by sexual orientation, when we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. Yes, we can join the rest of the world and provide health care to all people. Yes, we can make college available to all of our people, regardless of income. Yes, we can have the best child care system in the world. Yes, we can lead the world in combating climate change. To think big, to have a vision of what our great country can be, of a government that works for all of us and not a handful. I ask you to join me in making